You know what? Forget you and forget your spaceship. I want off this crummy space voyage. Let me out right here. Darn it, I'm floating through outer space again, and well, there sure is a lot of nothing out here. I mean, technically, not quite nothing. You've probably been taught that there's absolutely nothing in outer space, that it's a perfect vacuum, that there's no matter out here at all. Well, that's really, really, really close to true, but not quite. So right now I'm floating around through intergalactic space. I'm not in a galaxy, I'm not in the solar system, I'm not near any planets, I'm just out, middle of nowhere, nothing. And there's very, very little stuff out here. Now, physicists like to talk about how much stuff there is in outer space using density. That's the amount of matter per unit volume. So, out here in intergalactic space where there's really almost nothing, most physicists figure there's about the equivalent of 1 hydrogen atom per cubic meter. That's one little teeny tiny infinitesimally not understandable, so small little tiny atom of hydrogen in a cubic meter of space, which is, oh, yay big. But what if you're in a galaxy like this one? Well, galaxies have a lot of stuff in them, so naturally there's more density, there's more matter per unit volume. And scientists figure that inside your average galaxy, there are about 1 trillion particles per cubic meter. A trillion! That's like 1 million particles per cubic meter. That's a lot more than there is out in the far reaches of intergalactic space. Whew. Hot out. I'm at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Now this is a seriously huge canyon. It's about 400 kilometers long by, on average, 1.6 kilometers deep. If you're American, that's like 280 miles long by about a mile deep. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pretend that the Grand Canyon represents 1 cubic meter of outer space. And we're going to pretend that this sugar cube is 1 particle. So, when you're in far, far reaches of intergalactic space, there's 1 particle per cubic meter of space. And that's like throwing a sugar cube into the Grand Canyon. I mean, technically there's a sugar cube in the Grand Canyon, but it ain't making it any more sugary. It has no effect. And that's just like being in intergalactic space. There's that maybe 1 hydrogen atom floating around, but who cares? I mean, for all practical purposes, there's really nothing out there. Now let's say you go into galactic space, where, like I said, there are about 1 trillion particles per cubic meter. How much is that? Well, 1 trillion sugar cubes thrown into the Grand Canyon would fill the Grand Canyon up 0.00002% of the way. So even though 1 trillion sounds like a big number, in the grand scheme of things, 1 trillion particles in a cubic meter is almost nothing, just like 1 trillion sugar cubes in the Grand Canyon is almost nothing. Now what about here on planet Earth, where there are 1 trillion particles per cubic meter of air? Well, if you put 1 trillion sugar cubes into the Grand Canyon, it would fill it up 1,000,000 times. That's how much more matter there is on Earth than there is in space. I mean, to even represent it, you'd have to somehow pack 1,000,000 Grand Canyons worth of sugar cubes into 1 Grand Canyon, and that's how much denser air is than outer space. I mean, we have all these numbers, trillions and trillions and trillions, and they just lose meaning because you and I have no intuitive sense of what 1 trillion really is. There's no way for the human mind to wrap around that. But I can show these examples, and that's why science is so cool. I mean,